Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Maxine. All right. So good morning to everybody. I know that people will continue to join, but we will start so we keep with our timeline. So let me really warmly welcome you to our 10th conversation on migration in the Caribbean. I asked yesterday a UN colleagues how he was doing, and to what is quite a mundane question, he had, I think, the best answer. He said, I'm doing better than the world. And I think that's a sense that we all share in this time where we see a lot of disruption around us. It's good to be able to have those spaces to have some, I would say, adult discussions on some of the realities that we are facing while we see a lot of things happening around us. And to try to make sense a bit of the reality that the Caribbean in particular are facing right now. And I'm very happy that we're able to do that together with our co-host, Odan Brooks. Thank you for joining us as CARICOM Youth Ambassador. Thank you for having agreed to co-host. I will let you self-introduce in a little bit, but if you could just tell us like what time it is, where you are, without telling us where you are, just to get to see if anyone can guess where you are right now.
Thank you, Patrice. And I must say good morning to everyone that is joining us for this critical conversation. Where I'm at presently, it's approximately 8 p.m. in the night.
8 p.m. So I don't know. I mean, there is a little hint to know where you are right now, but really thanks for taking the time to join us and to help with this conversation with our guest speaker, Dr. Gerard Jean-Jacques. Really thanks for being there with us. We will do a bit more of a formal introductions, but I don't know if you want to say hi to our participants.
Certainly, it is my utmost pleasure to be a part of this discussion. It is an issue that the Caribbean continues to grapple with, and I believe that forums like these are important to have the conversations that eventually can be elevated at the policy level. So as co-host, I am looking forward to the conversation and to see what we can discern coming out of it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Ambassador, can you also hear us and say a word?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Good. Well, good morning to you and fellow participants and other persons on the call. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this conversation. I think that's the term used, conversation. It is a subject that is of critical importance to Dominica, not particularly to me because it's not something I've studied. So I'm no expert on the subject. But as we might discuss later on, Dominica is migration is central to part of our overarching macro frame of resilience. And I could explain that later on. So I'm very happy for the opportunity. Prior to this position that I have now, I was the Chief Development Planner. So much of what I'm going to say is going to be related, well, I'm tapping into my experience at that desk. So I'm happy for the opportunity to dialogue.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us. And we're really excited about that discussion. I have to apologize to Maxine for changing a little bit, for not following the script. So welcome to everybody who have joined us. We have Oban as co-presenter, Dr. Jean-Jacques as our guest speaker to talk about his experiences, especially in Dominica, but also as his ambassador for CARICOM and OECS to extend that also beyond on the topic of labor migration. It's our 10th conversation. We're really happy about the fact that it's the first this year, but it's also on a topic that is absolutely essential in this context in the Caribbean. And for that, we're also very happy because we are partnering directly with the CARICOM Secretariat that has been working diligently for some times now on the regional migration policy for CARICOM member states that has been mandated by the heads a few years back. So we're really happy to bring all of you in that setup with this conversation. It's the 10th one, so it's not the first one, and it's definitely not the last one. We're going to have more and more of this engagement, especially as we want to extend and ensure that there is as much citizen engagement on this discussion. And we want to also ensure that we are discussing those topics that are important to all of you. And I think the one on labor migration is definitely one where we see that there is an emerging need to discuss it and to build on the experiences such as the experiences of Dominica. We're also very happy to partner with the International Labour Organization. As the name indicated, labor. We're talking about labor migration in that space, and they also are fantastic partners working with us alongside with the Caribbean institutions and the member states to try to see what it means in the context of decent work to talk about labor migration in the space like the Caribbean. So that's the partnership. That's what we are bringing to you today. And we are really happy to be able to have that space and that discussion. We will put in the chat an ILO study that was just recently released that is called Free Movement of Persons in CARICOM, a labor market analysis. So you can also see like more data as while here we will try to bring a bit more of a flavor of what it means concretely to do that. And I think as part of setting the scene, I don't want to say too much because I think you know very well the dynamic that we see across the Caribbean. The first big one is obviously the impact of climate change that everyone is talking about. And we know that it creates tensions through natural disaster, but also through more long-term types of issues such as coastal erosions that is basically increasing the negative impact on livelihood. You just have to think of fisher communities that rely on fishing and how they are affected. We've seen that in Barbados after burial, for instance. But this one in combination with demographic changes that we see in the Caribbean is basically a time bomb. The demographic decline is probably one of the most existential threats together with climate change that is affecting the Caribbean space, and in particular all CARICOM countries. We'll show the video in a second. It's good to know that it works. So this issue of climate change combined with demographic changes, which in this space we're talking about accelerated demographic decline, is something that makes discussion around labor needs, and in particular the role that migration could play, in particular in sectors that are extremely stretched by the lack of skilled resources or the lack of resources, of human resources, is extremely important. And we need to build on any experiences in this region and around the world that can help countries in the Caribbean to make the best out of that situation. And migration here is there to help, but it can help under certain conditions. And that's what we want to discuss today. And we felt that talking with Ambassador Jean-Jacques was like one of the best way to start such a discussions, because Dominica has a wealth of experience around these issues. And he will talk about them. What we wanted to do and wanted to have his reaction is to present a short video that we did that is taking place in Dominica and that will really eloquently speaks for itself to set up a little bit the context around this labor migration, and that will help us to transition into our conversation. So Maxine, thank you for launching the video.
My name is Yves Joseph. I'm from Haiti originally. I've been living here for the past 19 years. I come to Dominica because my better best is from here. So I followed her, and I love Dominica. I have several supermarkets that take stuff, buy stuff for me, mainly vegetables, a wide variety of vegetables, and also the vendors at the market in Portsmouth and restaurants, all these people buy for me. So I do not really have a problem for the market. My issue is production. To produce, I only need one thing. I need laborers, I need farm workers. I am a beekeeper as well. Yeah, I'm a beekeeper. I'm proud to say that I'm a beekeeper, a rising beekeeper. Beekeeping with farming, that's a very good thing with pollination. We have the knowledge and the willingness and the love to produce. We have the soil. The soil is very fertile and very good. So if I have one man that can work for me, then later on I can organize myself and get another one and another one progressively. But I need at least one. I cannot get.
Thank you, Maxine. So I really like that story. I think it tells a lot in few seconds, and it really helps set a bit the scene for the discussion we want to have. It also touched upon one of the most challenging issues, which is food security across the Caribbean space. And that's why we wanted to bring that video there. But let me hand over to you, Odan. Tell us where you are, and then we will start the discussion with our guest speaker. Thank you.
Certainly, Patrice. Thank you for those invaluable introductory remarks. So I'm in India presently. I'm pursuing a PhD concentrated on sustainable finance. And it is interesting that we're having this conversation because it falls squarely within the realm of sustainable finance in the context of the impact of climate change and how, as a region, our vulnerability continues to be exposed in the various events, natural disasters that we face. As a Jamaican citizen, I can readily speak about how disasters can devastate socioeconomic conditions, having experienced Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica last year. So this conversation, it is one that is timely. It is one that policymakers are continuously seeing how to plug the labor shortage gap. But at the same time, as the conversation unfolds, we will be looking at how can we promote safer as well as more predictable migration patterns. Because for many of the economies across the region, governments are grappling with how to plug the skills gap that are emerging in many sectors. So this conversation, I'm looking forward to it and to benefit from the perspective of Ambassador as we seek to further dissect and to look deeper into this year. So over to you, Patrice.
Thank you, Adan, and thank you for joining us from India. Another great sign of what managed migration, including here for studies, can do to help development of the region. So Ambassador Dr. Jean-Jacques, really thank you for being there with us. I think we see your biography on the screen right now, and you have many years of experience working in senior positions that can really help us to unpack this issue of labor migration needs. I would like first to ask you if you could give us like a little bit of your reactions after things, the video that we just put there. Does it reflect adequately some of the reality you see in Dominica? And what can you tell us a little bit about the labor market's reality that you are experiencing right now?
Thank you very much I reiterate my thanks for inviting me. I watched the video and I thought, but whoever selected the video did an excellent job, because those few seconds, there's so much in there to unpack. Actually, that video could really be the source of a 2-hour discussion. Number one, what we have is a recent migrant to Dominica. Two, he's not just from any country, he's from Haiti. 3, he speaks of production. He has a very very vast area. There are parts of that, I've heard of the gentleman because he's a success case in agriculture in Dominica. Not just because, well, he's a recent migrant, but he is, as a farmer, he's considered a success case for Dominica. He didn't mention the support that he gets from the government, but that is also part of the package. He also mentioned the paucity, the labor problem that he experiences. That is a problem for Dominica. It's a real problem for us. I could come to these throughout. Let's begin with the Haiti. Why is that significant? Because for decades now, Dominica has relied on the input from Haitian migrants to boost production on our farm. But the thing is, many of the migrants, Dominica is not their final destination. It's a mere transit point. So how much time they spend here on the farm would vary. It would depend on circumstances that prevail well beyond the farm, whatever conditions that they consider. So you could have a very successful farm for a period of 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and this farm is producing and the output looks good and there's food in the market and what have you, and our numbers look good because we are producing Dominica, that is. And then he disappears. You could also have a worker or a few workers who have landed in Dominica from Haiti, and they produce on the farms and they work hard. They work hard, but you never really know when they're leaving. They could disappear in the night. As a matter of fact, I think it was last year I was speaking to a colleague, and he has a farm in a very productive area in Dominica, and he told me that just last week, a Haitian worker whom he has had on his farm and his family are working for a while. They told him they're leaving, they're going. So that creates a problem for Dominica because many farms that have depended on the support of the Haitian migrant worker, they suddenly find themselves without the support. Locally, we also have an issue. Agriculture is traditionally seen as something for the poor man to do. It's changing somewhat, huh? It's changing. So you don't have some white collar workers, some big shots you might call them, who have farms and they too go on the farm, like my colleague, he's not a big shot, but he's a white collar worker, you call him that, and he has his farm. So that's changing somewhat, but still, to get local Dominicans to work on the farm, it's a difficult situation. Additionally, we have ageism. Many of the farms, big estates, they are owned by seniors who are maybe too senior to go to the farm. They have offspring, they have children here and elsewhere who may not be interested in the farm or might want to manage a farm long distance if they reside in Europe or the United States. That, of course, means we have a number of acres of land currently under forest, lands that were previously very productive. Why is it so? Well, of course, because local supply for labor is down. The Haitian migrant worker doesn't really stay too long. There are very few of them. This Joseph gentleman is a success case. He has been, well, he has roots here, he's married here. So he has strong reason to stay. And he's very successful. Then, of course, there's the issue of support that the state grants to these farmers. I saw the beautiful looking lettuce and everything, and he spoke of apiculture. Excuse me, bee farming. Currently, Dominica is making strides in the production of honey. And the government very recently, I think last week, I heard of a deliberate effort to infuse the sector with capital, well, resources, money, as well as trained experts to support farmers like Mr. Joseph, irrespective of the fact that he's no longer a Haitian, but even though you're a migrant farmer in Dominica, as long as you're producing, the government is going to support you. I've done a number of cases where some Haitian farmers who have been here, you never know how long they're going to stay. But once you get involved in the production of food, the agricultural extension officers, they will meet you, they would speak to you about our local practices. We are not too heavy on pesticides. In some areas, we'll use pesticides. In some areas, we'll use the organic ones, the organic fertilizer. Cutting up trees is also an issue for us. So we have interest interacting with these migrant workers to increase production, to secure, for food security, and of course, to look after our labor, our local labor and market. So that video is very rich. If I could go back to your question, you asked about the realities of the labor market. So ageism I've mentioned, the paucity of the skilled and trained and consistent supply of workers for the farm. And not just the farm, but we could extend this to the health sector, which is a big thing for many countries, not just Dominica, across the world. Dominica, we have a very, I would call a very successful nursing program at Dominica State College. We're also busy having our students trained as doctors. Those who have been trained before, we have them specialized now in various fields. We now have a cardiologist, a Dominican cardiologist. We have there's some other specializations as well that will be in the last, that were added to our staff at the National Hospital in the last 8 years thereabout. So we continue to invest in training. However, there's also a shortage for trained, competent, and experienced medical workers elsewhere. So these persons, when they get recruited by greener pastures, quote unquote, they leave, and then of course Dominica is back to square one, maybe square two. Well, not totally square one, but square two, for example. So there's a continuous drain. I shouldn't use the word drain, but that's what it is, on the treasury, to continue to train personnel for health. Construction, the issue in construction, and not just hammer and nails and wood, but we're speaking about plumbing. When I say construction industry, I think of plumbing, all those industries, sub-industries that are related to the act of infrastructural development. There is also a paucity of these persons in Dominica, and the few who are here, they're in high demand, such high demand that you could wait an entire week or two to get a diesel plumber to do a good job at your home for you, or electrician, or a welder, for example. Now, these are issues that we are faced with, all paucity, but there's also the issue of perception of these jobs. I mean, traditionally, persons would have seen such jobs as unprofitable. We have been working in the last, I was a school principal, so I know in the last at least 30 years, working very hard to change the perception. I personally, well, I don't have skills in any of these trades, but I know persons who are involved in welding, carpentry, electricians. They can take care of their families. They're the ones who can really take care of their families, and they're in high demand. They do good work. So what have we done in the past years? We have often relied in the past years on persons from outside. This is facilitated in particular through the OECS union, whereby a tradesman from St. Vincent's could simply cross the border in Dominica, no issues, no work permit, nothing, and just come and apply his trade. We saw this effectively applied, especially after Tropical Storm Erika in 2015 and Hurricane Maria, especially then in 2017. Within a few days, I kid you not, of Hurricane Maria, we had skillsmen from St. Lucia, from the neighboring islands, coming to Dominica to work. So we have constantly been relying on migrant workers. We have embraced them. We have some work to do with regards to their formalization, and we can speak of that later on. But this is part of our strategy to build resilience in our developmental thrust. So you asked about the dynamics, the paucity, the ageism, the perceptions that persons have. But there's one more I would add though. Maybe I'll leave this one for later. But these are generally the areas of that dominate the labor market for Dominica.
Thank you so much for giving us a lot of food for thought with your first intervention. And I do agree with you. I also really like this video. It gives in a few seconds a very good snapshot into some of the realities that we are talking about. I also personally very much like the fact that he's also in Dominica, following what is probably one of the main driver of migration across the world, which is not for job, but which is for love, which is always a very nice way to ensure that there is also a commitment to the place you move to. Before flagging that very often when it comes also to Haitian migration in Dominica, there is an issue with the sustainability of the approach that you are facing. And that would be one of the question we'd like also to understand better also what might be some of the thinking around that. Because it's not easy to find the right tool that would really work and what kind of, we call them regular migration pathway, can help best in certain sectors, looking at certain countries of origin of migrants where they have surplus. So we know that in Haiti there is a different demographic dynamic, but there is also a different situation and a crisis that has been a protracted crisis for many decades in this country. But we also know that when it comes to construction sectors in some countries in the Caribbean, you also have a lot of young men from the Latin American side that are coming to help with some of the gaps that the entire space is experiencing. There is a construction sector issue across the board when it comes to meeting deadlines, because there is often a lack of labor, as you have also elaborated. And other sectors that are also considered critical that you've mentioned, like the health sector in particular, and you also alluded to the issue of the brain drain that a lot of countries in the Caribbean are experiencing, investing many years in very expensive university curriculum to get good doctors and then to see them move to the United States, to the UK, to Canada. It does feel like a lost investment, and that's definitely also part of the discussion on why there are even labor needs in certain sectors in the first place. So there is really a lot that what you've said and touched upon, including towards the end also about how free movement at the OECS level that has existed for many years now has been helping, especially after Maria, as you indicated. Also the fact that North Dominica has joined 3 other countries in the CARICOM space on the free movement protocol, which helps people beyond CSME to basically find a home in those 4 countries.
Yeah.
What in your views, when looking at all that and having set up the scene, would be well-managed migration in that context for Dominica? What do you think is needed, bringing migrations together with also other policies that are required? You alluded to skillings, the change of perception in the agriculture, or people that start seeing that vocational training might be also a good way forward to have decent work. What in your view would be needed? What is the infrastructures that government should have?
Well, for one, and I did not mention it, thank you very much for the question. I didn't mention it, but Dominica has actually has a program of recruiting Haitian workers. If a farmer in Dominica wishes to recruit workers from Haiti to work on his or her farm, he would work with the labor division, then get, of course, the permit. He would recruit his people. They wouldn't be automatically allowed in because, of course, there has to be some due diligence done by the National Security Ministry on who is coming in. But essentially, we have successfully done this for decades to recruit workers. And you mentioned the Hispanics. I have seen a few, I think the Cuban persons working in construction in Dominica as well. I'm not quite sure how this arrangement works, but I don't think that it is on the scale as we have with the Haitians and the folks from the Dominican Republic. What we have done in addition is that in the last weeks, we have actually eliminated visa requirements for persons from the Dominican Republic for up to 180 days. What that is intended to do is to open up the door, make it easier for them to come in They generally provide services in the hospitality sector. So they would do cleaning, cosmetics, hairdressing, etc. They provide services there. They allow money to circulate a bit, and that is also a strategy. So clearly, Dominica is on a path with a very structured program. We, of course, you mentioned the enhanced protocol agreement that we have signed with 3 other CARICOM member states, Barbados, Belize, and St. Vincent. We are already wedded, as it were, to St. Vincent through the OECS Union, but as a means to facilitate even more greater movement of skills throughout CARICOM, that decision was taken in the hope that more persons will come. There have been some successes across the islands. In Dominica, currently, we have a number of persons from both St. Vincent and Barbados. I do not know of many persons from Belize, but I had a gentleman ask me a few weeks ago about what did he ask me? What is Belize like? What do they export? And I told him, hey, now is an opportunity for you to go down there to find out. You could simply present yourself through this enhanced protocol that we have signed. You don't need a work permit. You don't need a job letter. Nobody's even going to ask you for well, an employer can ask you for a police certificate, but it still isn't going to ask a police certificate when you arrive at the ports. So we have engaged, Dominica has been engaging in various measures through CARICOM, through OECS, and of course through our own initiatives to facilitate the movement of skills to Dominica. We also continue, by the way, to support out migration structured. We have a farm workers program. We are part of a farm workers program where we have farmers who go to Canada every year, pretty much every year, to work on the farms. And well, it's a seasonal task of picking fruits, what have you. But there is conversation within the OECS to expand this from picking fruits to doing other tasks as well, so more persons can benefit from such a scheme. And a number of OECS states are involved in this. So these are structures, these are measures that we have deliberately created, and we actually actively participate in them to ensure that we get skills coming in. We have always embraced the Cuban medical brigade. We have done so for a very long time. Currently, the Cuban nurses and doctors are part of the backbone of our health system. We are grateful for that. We continue, even in this very challenging time, we continue to find ways for us to keep that program. And I have no doubt that we will, because unlike what has been said, Dominica has been very fair to persons engaged in the Cuban workers medical brigade. We have our contracts with them. So the system is different from what has been portrayed in certain circles around the world. And we continue to do so, and we'll continue to work with them as well. So a number of efforts we are taking deliberately to enhance the movement of skills into the region. You will hear likely in the next few weeks about another initiative launched by Dominica in conjunction with a few CARICOM states, especially the 3 other states that have formed we call them the Pioneering 4, that have signed this protocol of enhanced cooperation for food movement October 1 last year. There is a program that Dominica is currently designing to facilitate greater the movement of skills and the development of our capacity in the region. The hope, and maybe I move away a little bit, but it's not too far. The hope is we can build a region that is so wonderful to live in, that our youth will have less of a reason to live forever. They could live, why not? Spread your wings, go learn some new tricks elsewhere, but come back. Keep the Caribbean as your base. This is what we are after. And Dominica is currently designing something on that effect to an end, and you will likely hear about it. So we have taken this issue of labor very seriously. I might add to you that Dominica is also lead on labor matters within CARICOM, the CARICOM cabinet. And we are also actively working to develop a work program for CARICOM. This matter before COSOD, and it will come up some point. We are going through the process. The intention is to develop a ministerial working group as well as a work program. The ministerial working group is going to be facilitating the development of the work program as well as overseeing the implementation of that work program. That is also a contribution towards facilitating movement. We take it very seriously. Resilience is our macro development frame, and we'll do everything that we possibly can to secure skills for the region and for Dominica.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for those words. And I think you also gave a very good hint that it might be also time to ask Oda, other youth that has left, that is right now studying in the region, to also maybe ask you a few questions, especially from that perspective, because as you said, it's not about preventing young people from spreading their wings. It's about how ensuring that they can also come back and become also productive assets for their society, for their people.
That's it.
So
That's
maybe
it.
I will pass it to you, Odan, to just help us also bring that perspective in that discussion and ask your question to the ambassador.
Certainly, Patrice. Very important points raised there by the ambassador. But if I should even raise from the youth perspective, one of the major challenge young people argue is the challenge of low wage as well as other things that go against what they believe is good work conditions. So I want to get from Ambassador, what are his thoughts on those policies that should be in place to assure for some sense of decent work where people's fundamental rights are being protected?
The low wage issue is a difficult one. For one, it will be difficult to impose, and this is why minimum wage discussions is often complex. It's difficult always to impose specific wages on an employer in certain economic contexts. What I believe governments should do, and I'm happy that the government that I represent has been doing something about it, is to seek to meet the youth halfway. So, for example, the wages are low. You may make about 2,000 Eastern Caribbean dollars a month, which is not much in the US at all. But you have needs. You probably have dreams for a home, land. Maybe you want to go to study. Governments should seek to meet the youth halfway. Provide a scholarship, provide full, partial scholarship, three-quarter scholarship, land for agriculture or land for businesses, housing could be free, could be housing at concessionary rates. Let me tell you something that we're doing in Dominica. Currently, we have we have a very large housing program. Went through it in earnest after Maria, having to build a number of houses. One component is futures housing. Now that one, essentially, it caters to the young person, well, a professional, who has the means and the taste for nice things. The housing, the loan for the house is has been negotiated, you can call it that, with the financial institution, so that the intended homeowner is not going to be paying as high an interest as a normal rate. Additionally, public officers under 40 years, the government actually provides about what, 20,000 Eastern Caribbean, 20,000 Eastern Caribbean dollars. That goes towards construction of a house. Additionally, public officers, last year's budget, this June, July budget, there was an announcement of a program whereby public officers, doctors, police officers, nurses, etc., they can receive loans through housing. We have what they call the Government Housing Loans Board. That has been in place for eons now. Receive loans through that institution, very concessionary rates, below 5% to have their house constructed. That is one some way to meet the youth halfway and therefore help them meet the shortfall, the perceived shortfall in their salary. It's a scholarship program Dominica has maintained at a high cost to us. I can say so because I'm also permanent secretary and I have an idea of the cost of paying these bills for advanced education, high level education for persons who do not study in Dominica. And even as they study in Dominica, they do so online. Many are also receiving support. Dominica State College currently is free to the student. He or she pays no tuition fees. There are some little fees. I heard of a lab fee, probably some particular uniform fee I've heard of, but the student does not pay for tuition at the Dominica State College. What is that supposed to do? That is supposed to remove the burden, part of the burden of being educated from the student. I could go on as well. I'll be very happy to go on. But generally what I'm saying there is this. Governments have to put in place structures, real structure that they can sustain to support the youth so that when there's a perceived shortfall in their salary, they know that there are other avenues through which they can still succeed. And they have to be told so. I suspect one of the issues we have in Dominica in particular is many of the young persons don't even know these schemes exist because they don't listen to the budget debate. It's normally long, often has figures, lots of figures, and it's politicians speaking. Youth generally are not really going to be listening to this. They will be at their work, they'll have their headphones, listen to music, or perhaps something else. So many of the youth might not even know about these programs. And if I were to advise my colleagues from across the region is that when you put these programs in place, you have to let the intended recipients, the targeted recipients, know they exist. How could they access them? That is so in a nutshell, to your answer, to your question, sorry. There are real structures that governments can put in place, and I'm happy that we have done so, and I suspect many other Caribbean states will be doing likewise. But it's not enough, huh? It's not enough.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And I'm happy that you touched on that latter points regarding the public awareness about these programs. Because last year in my capacity as CARICOM Youth Ambassador, I had the opportunity to engage with a few young people at the University of the West Indies. And it was ironic that at the university level, many of the young people did not or is not aware of the facilities under the CSME program and how they're able to obtain a skilled certificate to move across the region. And so I believe that is a major point that raises the question as to whether we can do more to bridge the knowledge deficit that is present within the region among young people especially. So I will hand back over to Patrice for another question.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Ambassador. I think we might want right now to open the floor and to see from our audience. And I see there were some exchanges also in the chat. If you'd like to ask any specific question, or if you'd like to, you can raise your hand or you can put the question in the chat. To give you a chance to also go deeper in some of the issues that were mentioned, or to ask also other questions about how a country like Dominica approaches migration. So the floor is open. We need someone to break the ice. Who would like to ask a question?
Patrice, there are a couple of questions in the chat. Maybe we can go there first.
You want to go through them?
So there is There's one question listening in from Curacao, and this is from Tamira La Cruz. Tamira, you can open your mic and ask the question yourself if you'd like to.
Yeah, yes, thank you. I was looking for the raise your hand button, but thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very interesting points. Um, so we often speak about the wage gap. What are the actual studies about what the wage gap is between, let's say, the UK, Canada, and also for us, the Netherlands and the Caribbean countries, and also what are the qualitative, research about qualitative issues that the diaspora considers before they return home or not. So, what are the actual studies about that? I just started my video, but it doesn't work. Did you hear me?
Yes, we heard you.
Right.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Do you have some information to share on that, on some of the work you've done in Dominica?
No, I do not have data on the wage gap among the countries mentioned, and I'm not even sure that we have a study in the region on the maybe there has been, but I haven't seen. I should say I haven't seen a study on the wage gaps in the Caribbean region. What you would find often online is information on the per capita figures on per capita income among the Caribbean islands. What is the last part of the question? I think there was another question she asked.
Yes.
Also, but
because sometimes people say, "Well, I make more in the Netherlands versus Curacao." Yes, but sometimes there are other reasons for people to choose to return or not. Things such as family, things such as the weather, things such as perhaps opportunities for growth. So, is there any research done about those types of issues across the Caribbean?
about research on attracting and retaining the diaspora. Not for Dominica. Probably Jamaica has. I know Jamaica has a very well organized diaspora policy. What I know, because we are sensitive to that matter, that is, how do we attract the diaspora? And maybe I should have mentioned that from the beginning, because part of our strategy to increase labor is also including the diaspora. That is mentioned in our National Resilience Development Strategy. You could find a document online. What does that mean? Well, essentially, it means preparing the environment in Dominica to provide services that will support the diasporan interests. The diasporan which returns to Dominica to retire would require generally looking at healthcare, maybe concessions to bring back stuff and whatnot. A diasporan who wants to come to Dominica to work or to invest is looking for concessions. He's looking for availability of staff, skilled, trained staff, especially in whichever, if the area of the field is a very particular field. What the government has done is, one, every Dominican returning the set number of items that he or she could come back with duty free. If you're returning to invest, you want to open a clinic, for example, in Dominica as a diasporan, you submit the request for concessions, and that is generally considered. The idea is to facilitate you coming in, not to discourage you. This is an area, however, I think that is a diasporan, attracting and reaching diasporan. It's a work in progress, because there are some, I'm hearing from some diasporans, there are still some shortcomings. But I know from my point that it is very easy to approach the Ministry of Finance and make a request based on your needs. There are also diasporans currently who work. They might live in North America, but they come back to Dominica to provide services. So that tells me that they are accommodated by various policy decisions to support them. And I would suggest to other Caribbean states as well that this is the way to go. As I indicated, Jamaica for sure is way ahead of us. I periodically go to the Planning Institute of Jamaica website to see what they're doing, and it's impressive. But Dominica, I don't think we're there as yet. Jamaica, how far Jamaica is, but there certainly are structures to provide concessions to returning Dominicans to set up businesses, to establish themselves, to retire if they so desire.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, also for the response, and thank you, Ms. La Cruz, for asking that. I can also see in the chat this very interesting flyer from brain to brain gain that is organized. I see Terry Lovell posted it. It looks like a very interesting discussion, by the way. And I truly think that we should very soon have also one of our next conversations specifically talking about diaspora engagement. We know that this is like, it's a very promising area. We know all governments, as Ambassador Jean-Jacques was explaining, are looking at diaspora engagement, are looking at return of diaspora members that could not only come as those that want to retire, but those that would also like to come back and work and contribute to the economic development at different age level. But we also know that diaspora engagement is not necessarily that easy to do. It requires also resources. It requires testing, ways of engaging. And that's definitely an area where any space that can help to share experiences would be welcome. So I think we would, on our side, we would be very interested and committed to organize a discussion specifically on the diaspora side. What this also shows is that there is basically, we see that when we start talking about migration, we're unpacking a lot of different issues from the return, trying to see diaspora return, all the way to creating pathways across the world. We've been talking also about how to expand free movement beyond the OECS within the CARICOM space as also one other ways. And we've heard also from the ambassador about many different venues that the government has been putting in place to try to make the best out of the potential that migration can bring from development. Starting from national policies, looking at sub-regional within the Organization of the Eastern Caribbean States, expanding towards CARICOM states, and then beyond also looking at potential labor migration arrangement with other countries in some specific sectors. And we can see that there is a lot of policies that needs to come together also in terms of skilling, reskillings, instead of the education of the education system, vis-a-vis the employment needs that are also there to provide decent work. So we're unpacking some very complex areas. And it's also good to hear that there is also organization at CARICOM level. You've mentioned also the work of the ministerial working group, the work program. I think what we'd like to ask you as a last question is what would you like to see in place if we were 10 years from now, or let's say 5 years, because we are in a world that is moving so fast right now that 10 years feels very far. But in 5 years' time, what would you like to have seen put in place that would really help leverage migration for the benefit of a country like Dominica or for the benefit of Caribbean countries, societies?
Yeah, thank you. I find this question pretty interesting. I enjoy this question. It forces us all to think forward, look ahead. We have some issues, with migration and labor. I mean, it's one thing to have movement of persons. We had to look at the quality of the worker who is moving. I mean, you can move for fun, that's all right, that's cool, that's fine. But if we want to look at making the Caribbean region this ideal for the Caribbean citizen, whether the Caribbean citizen was born here or he became a citizen through other means. If we want to make the region the ideal, we have to start investing some more in innovation. Why choose innovation? I mean, if you look at the world beyond the region, the Caribbean has often been a source of receiving innovations from elsewhere. However, when I move around the Caribbean, I meet so many intelligent persons. The University of the West Indies, which has been, you know, the champion. We fly the banner of the University of West Indies throughout the world. It's been champion for education in the region. They are the top universities, but they produce brilliant persons. We also send many persons to study elsewhere. If we can get these minds together to design the best, the most inventive, the most creative and sustainable strategies, AI technology, for example, to combat some of our problems in the region, can you imagine how attractive the region would be? Let's imagine if you were to develop an AI software that can detect certain forms of cancer and destroy them. So imagine you have a patient, you have this software, you have a patient, you're a doctor, I don't know, you run a scan with a person, AI says, and right away, you also get the possible solution to that problem. Can you imagine how attractive the region would be for our youth, for the diaspora, and for others to come to invest? So I think we have to look, and I believe we have the talent in the region for this. We should not think low. We should always aspire to further higher. How far are we thinking? What is the vision? So innovation. I'm also thinking when we innovate and we have persons moving, we have to, I still feel that in the region, there is always an us and them. You're always reminded, or you're often reminded, even in the Caribbean island, that, you know, you're not from here. Yeah, we embrace you, yeah. But you're still called, hey, Trini, you're still called Dominican, or you're still called Haitian. Nobody just ignores the fact that you're Dominican. If you work in Haiti for, if you work in a neighboring island for a while, you eventually are referred to by, you know, by your nationality. I still feel that there is a gap between the migrant worker and the worker who is the native worker, the national. And this is also manifested in what services we offer to the migrant worker. There are cases where the migrant worker is not granted the same amount of post-disaster support, for example, as a national. Regrettably, this does happen. Although the migrant worker has been contributing as much, if not more, than the native worker. This kind of discrimination, it can run deep and it can impact productivity. It doesn't create for this decent work environment that we have been speaking about. And that's something I believe Dominica will be looking to raise when we do get to build a work program for CARICOM labor. Because if you want labor to move, you have to make the environment attractive for labor. CARICOM has the protocol on contingent rights. I believe we also have the Movement and Factors Act, which ensures the right of the person to move with capital, etc. These rights are there. But states, of course, still have the leeway to move around and, I don't want to use the word frustrate, but to restrict those rights. There are ways to get around. So we have to change our mindset. I've also noticed many of our youth, they want to move around, but move around maybe just for like action, fit. As far as moving around for labor, we have some issues with labor and the mentality of many of our persons. I often say, not everybody wants to work. Everybody wants a check. You have bills to pay. The phone bill has to be paid, internet, etc. You gotta look good, smell good, eat good food. Not everybody who moves is concerned so much about working. And I see it a lot, not just among youth in Dominica, Matthew. My eyes are open, I've been paying attention. I suspect we have to do some work on developing what I call a work ethic. I'm not sure that's a language, but we have to do something to reprogram the minds of our people towards work. Work requires discipline. I'm not hearing much talk about it, as we speak about migration in the context of labor, we ought to be looking at how do we remind our citizens across the region work requires discipline. So if you had to be at work at 8 o'clock this morning, you know you can't be out up till 4 o'clock in the morning partying last night. Or if you do so, you have to have a plan for getting to work and delivering a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. I sometimes feel, too often feel that many of our youth might be losing focus a bit. That concerns me because that hits at the core of productivity. If you have 1,000 youth at work in a factory on a, what today is what, on a Wednesday morning, and half of them are sleepy or maybe still recovering from hangover, how productive can they be? We have some work to do. I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues, my counterparts, and to see how we can keep focus on these issues. So innovation, we certainly have to look, I mentioned what the work ethic, yes, but we'll certainly have to look at embracing the diaspora as well. That is certainly, the diasporans, they're all excited about the village where they were born, you know. When they come back, they're excited. I want to go to the river. I want to go to, we have lots of rivers in Dominica. Go to the river. I want to go that mango tree that Auntie Label, she used to, they go back. Nostalgia, driven by nostalgia. They want to go back. I think this is something we can capture. That desire, driven by nostalgia, to go back from whence they came. I do not believe that the Caribbean as yet has done as much a good job as embrace diaspora for our development. I think that is something we can work on. So I've said a few things here on that.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And because you articulated very well the issue of innovation also, and the role that young people can play, maybe let me then give the floor to Odan for maybe a last word on your side before I will not do justice to the discussion, but I try to do some wrap up because I think, Ambassador, you gave me quite a few ideas as well for future conversation. But first, over to you, Odan.
Thank you, Patrice, and thank you to Ambassador for a very potent conversation there. The points he raised regarding young people, they certainly resonate because when we look at the demographic changes and the concentration of young people as migrants moving across different borders, we can see that young people are at the forefront. And so any conversation about migration and workforce also impacts young people. And particularly keen on the point that Ambassador raised regarding innovation. There is significant potential within the region when it comes to innovation. You could say we are the hub of innovators. But what I believe we lack is structures, as Ambassador alluded to. So I believe that if we can get those structures and get those conditions right, where our young people can see the Caribbean as a place to live, work, raise family, and do business, pulling there from our Vision 2030 mantra in Jamaica, I'm confident that our young people will remain there. And my final point as I wrap up is to continue to emphasize the youth voice, the youth perspective in these conversations. Oftentimes we design solutions and policies, and the young voices are not included in the discourse. So I would want to also to raise that point about the importance of by full participation of young people in the overall migration process. If I might say, Patrice, we've had a really interesting conversation here this morning, a lot of takeaways, and I believe there is even more room for these conversations to take place. As you alluded to, the the role of the diaspora is significant. There's a lot of investment potential there. And so we should continue these interesting conversation. So I'll hand over to you now, Patrick.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Olan, for joining us all the way from India to get also this perspective that we often talk about, but that is so essential because young people are the future of the workforce, or are already the workforce, and the needs of different generations change over time. So it's very important. I think your point is well taken on the need to ensure that youth voice is not just seen as a token, but something that can meaningfully contribute to policy development and discussion across that space. And if we can play a role to facilitate that, we're really happy about it. We know that there is CARICOM youth ambassadors, that there is also infrastructures that are meant to help facilitate that. And I think, as Ambassador was saying, there is definitely an important role that this generation would have to play to shape the future of the Caribbean. So this is not just a token voice, definitely not. And it's good to hear how much interest there is in factoring that. Ambassador, would you like to have also a last word? I know we've passed a little bit the time, but just to give you an opportunity, if you want to have a last message you wanted to convey.
Oh, well, a key thing I wanted to say was innovation, actually, and I've said it. But as Orena has mentioned, well, he highlighted the youth. It might please him to know that the program that Dominica is considering launching in collaboration with our member state, CARICOM member states, is actually targeting the youth. It's a program that will engage them and immerse them in a process of thinking for problem solving across the region. So, and that is targeting the youth CARICOM youth ambassadors and the young professional. CARICOM has a young professionals. I can't remember the exact labeling, but it's going to be targeting the youth. So I'm happy for this opportunity to converse, to dialogue. The topic is timely. It's of much importance to CARICOM and the Eastern Caribbean, because we are all about movement, integration, but not just integration because we like to sit together on an umbrella to have coffee. We like to do that, yes, but integration for a purpose. Shared skills is at the core of the integration movement. Shared skills, shared resources. A Barbadian can come to Dominica and well, invest in Dominica, and vice versa, and a Jamaican can go to Trinidad and share his skills, invest in St. Vincent. We want our skills to remain in the region. Yeah, you go over there beyond the region now and then. We want our people to remain in the region, to work and build the region. That is why innovation and structures to support the youth and the diaspora, I believe, are important. Thank you for the opportunity. Let's do it again sometime.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador. It's really a pleasure to have you in this discussion. And it's not going to be the last one, because I think you gave us also a lot of ideas for other discussion that we could use that space for. The first one that we already mentioned is on diaspora engagement. I think that's definitely one where there needs for a space, and to try to see who has done what and what are some of the most promising level of engagement ideas that seems to work to attract the diaspora virtually, in presence, for temporary returns, for permanent return. The options are very numerous. But definitely it's one priority that we hear from all Caribbean member states, and that's definitely one where there is space for discussion and for a lot of innovation as well. Thank you also for bringing this element of innovation, youth engagement as well. It's one where there is, especially when it comes to recognizing the level of talent and creativity that there is in this region, and to see a lot of this talent and creativity leave without returning is definitely something that feels like a lot of missed opportunities. So anything that can help that, but also how to bring the rest of the world to the Caribbean so they can bring their own creativity, their own talent, and continue to make the Caribbean the space it is, a space that has drawn on so many different influences to make to get the best of humanity. I would just say like how much reggae is helping peace across the world. And there are many others elements that could be brought there, especially not only on the cultural side, but definitely on the cultural level. It's one of the most visible ones. But one that I would like to flag as well as the last one, where also there is also a need for discussion, is the integration discussion that you also mentioned. The perception that we have vis-a-vis migrants, even when they come from the same Caribbean space that you were describing, and even more when they will come from outside. I think that's also discussions that would be very interesting to have and to unpack. What does it mean to make the Caribbean an attractive space for foreigners that they would like to bring their family, to bring their skills, to bring their knowledge, and how to work with local perceptions around migration, which is something where everywhere in the world we see issues with integration and potential discrimination that are there. And I think that would be great to also have this conversation and have this discussion, because that will be also one of the important elements, especially for skills that do not exist. And as we've discussed today, that's at all levels. It can be for construction worker, it can be for people working in technical level, as well as people working in much more high skills type of job, doctors, nurses, especially in a space where we know we have an aging population. The care industry will have to take much more space. So I think those are also other elements of discussion that would be very interesting to have. And on our side, I think to reiterate the commitment of an organization like IOM, but I also know that from our friends and colleagues from the International Labour Organization, but also the entire United Nations system under the UN Network on Migration, to help also support you with the discussion, to bring expertise from other parts of the world of what has been tested and tried, as you are trying to bring and articulate a vast array of policies that are all interconnected. And we hope that the regional migration policy and the CARICOM will help also member states to see how they can articulate and identify areas that they would like to prioritize, but also how the discussion around the quasi ministerial working group on migration, the work program that you've been mentioned, can also help moving in that direction and unpack the vision that you mentioned and that you gave us in your presentation. So I would like to thank all of you for joining this morning, this conversation. It's the number 10. It's definitely not the last one. I think, thank you, Ambassador Jean-Jacques. We have a few more ideas for the next ones, and we hope they will be very soon. Thank you, Odan, for bringing your voice there. And thank you for everyone who came and joined us this morning. And we look forward to interacting with you at the next opportunity. So thank you all and have a wonderful day.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.